Good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everybody doing this morning? Good talk. Well, welcome to 1 Million Cups. I want to give a special welcome this morning to the students from China studying at UMKC this summer for entrepreneurship. Thank you so much for coming out. Let's give a round of applause for them. I also want to give a special welcome to the Fast Track facilitators in the house. Let's give a round of applause for them. So my name is Luke Wade, and I'm a community organizer for 1 Million Cups. If you're not aware of what 1 Million Cups is, it's a community organization that gets two organizations the opportunity to stand up here, talk for 6 minutes. We take questions from the expert panel, and then we open it up to you guys. So with that being said, I would like to introduce the expert panel, Steve Wood and Ben Cottrell. You guys get a mic? There it is. Give yourself a little introduction.
2-second delay, okay. I'm Ben Cottrell, one of the founders of DoodleKit, which is a website builder for small businesses. We've been used by millions of people in over 180 countries. My background is in software engineering and architecture.
I'm Steve Wood, and I manage a creative crowdsourcing platform called Boom IdeaNet. My background has been in the traditional agency world, and now we're moving into kind of the disruption space of that model.
All right, thank you very much. So something I skipped over because today it's just me and Kyle. We're just running around like crazy people, but who's here for the first time? Let me see your hand if you're here for the first time. Awesome, thank you so much for joining us. All right, with that being said, I'm gonna jump right in and introduce Russell and Ken with Gorilla Signs, and we're going with the second one first again because me and Kyle don't know what we're doing up here. So let's hear it for Russell and Ken with Gorilla Designs.
Hear me all right? Well, thank you for letting us come and present to you today. We're from Springfield, Missouri, and we presented at me. Actually, first time I went to Million Cups was in May of 2014. I was sitting in the audience just like you are right now, and it was kind of a reflection that I had on my life, thinking, what could I do? What could I invent? What could I create? And I came out of a real estate career for 34 years. And as I sat there, I thought back at a time when I was 12 years old in Wichita, Kansas. My uncle was president of the Board of Realtors, and he was also the head of the soccer club for Wichita State University at the time. And he was cutting a ribbon for the new football stadium. This was back in 1969. And shortly after he cut the ribbon, he leaned down in my ear and he said, "Kenny, how would you like to go with me to watch Wichita State play Utah here in a couple of days?" And I said, "Yeah, great." 12 years old, I'm thinking, sure. So late that afternoon, he was pulling a real estate sign out of the back of his car to do an open house. And as he did, there was a blanket wrapped around it about 3 times, and I said, "Uncle Ray, why is there a blanket wrapped around your real estate sign?" And he said, "Well, Kenny," said, "someday, somebody's going to reinvent the real estate sign." He said, "Because they rattle in the back of my trunk, they scratch up my trunk," and he said, "They're really kind of a pain." And I, 12 years old, I'm surprised I retained it, but I did. 2 days later, I'm sitting on an airplane at the airport, Wichita Airport, on a private plane with all of the A-string football team sitting behind me, and the coach and his wife sitting next to me, and my uncle still standing out on the tarmac. And all of a sudden, I saw a car pull up out front, and it was my mother, and I hadn't seen her for about 45 days. And so I got off the plane real quick to go say goodbye to her, and so I hugged her with my jersey on that said 12 that Wichita State gave me in gold and black, and I was pretty excited. And as I hugged her and got ready to get back on the plane, she said to me, "You know," she says, "you're not going to like me very much for this," but she said, "I don't want you to go." And I said, "No, you can't do that to me, Mom," with tears rolling down my face. She said, "Well, it's just, call it a mother's intuition, call it whatever you want." She said, I haven't seen you for 45 days. So long story short, I didn't go. My aunt went my place. I went on home. I went on to school that day. And it was a good day. I came home, turned on the TV, plane crashed, and everybody on it died. It was the Wichita State football team plane crash that happened in 1969. Well, you can guess that it left an everlasting impression on me. And I became the youngest realtor in the state of Missouri when I got my license in real estate 7 years later in Springfield, Missouri. And the first real estate sign I stuck in the ground, you can guess what crossed my mind. And $1.8 billion worth of real estate sales later, I thought, you know what? Sitting in that Million Cups meeting, maybe that's what I should do, is reinvent the sign. Well, I tried. I worked on it for a number of days and went to 3 different engineers. They told me that it was virtually impossible to create the sign that I wanted to create. Well, I prayed on it for 2 weeks, and I got a phone call from one of my old real estate agents, and he said, I want you to meet my brother-in-law. He's an inventor. And I said, you know, up, and I said, yeah, this would be great. So I did meet him, and his name is Russ. This is Russ.
I like to think of myself as the answer to Ken's prayers. I'm the inventor and engineer behind the Gorilla Signs. I'm going to be doing a quick live demonstration of the product for you. But first, I'd like to point your attention to the video on the screen here. You'll notice that there's a stake inside the sign itself. That slides out. And what that's going to allow you to do is actually use the frame itself to drive the stake into the ground. Now, in a minute here, you're also going to see that this same frame is designed to also reverse drive the stake out of the ground. The whole purpose being that there are absolutely no tools required to set it up or take it down. I'm going to hold that real quick. Now, once you get it firmly mounted into the ground, what you do is you just simply remove these 4 pins, I call them arm pins, and you elevate the arms into a horizontal position. Okay, this is just going to make it a little bit easier to attach the banner onto the frame. Now, these same pins that were holding the arms of the sign closed, these same pins are what I'm going to actually use to attach the banner onto the frame. So there's no additional tools, no additional pins, or anything of any kind. Just get 3 of these corners here attached. Now, once you get to this point here, things get pretty cool. Something that you know, even one person can set up. It's a full-size construction sign that anybody can set up in about 2 to 3 minutes.
When I first gave the thought to Russell, I said, Russell, there's about 20 things I'd like for that sign to do. And he didn't blink an eye. He came up with all 20 of them. So we'll go over them here in a minute. Go ahead. Basically, the sign's about empowering small businesses to be able to have a marketing tool. It's not about a sign. We refer to this as a sign, but it's really a marketing tool. This is the first portable mini billboard on the face of the earth. And it actually can change the faces of it out in minutes. And the cost is very effective. So it allows you to do a mini ad campaign with signage in front of your business or off premises. Banner industry is a $6.5 billion industry. I think this says 5.5, but it's actually 6.5 billion. And we think we hope to expand that industry dramatically because of the convenience of being able to now use banners. In fact, we think of it now as more of a media than just the use of a banner.
And we're out of time.
Time's up.
All right, we're going to start off with opening up to our expert panel.
So it's really cool product. I love the engineering. I love the innovation. I'm curious, as a business, where you're at as far as, is this something that you're selling, or how long have you been selling it, or is it kind of, what stage are you at?
Actually, we did start the first of the year. It's been 2 years in the making. We started selling it first of the year to
Is that for you?
yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. This is our new PR ambassador. This is Ruskin. Ruskin's cheap. That's the good thing. It's just bananas, you know. So, and a startup company, that's important, you know. So, but in answer to your question, we started the first of the year. We've sold a few hundred signs already in Southwest Missouri. We're now expanding into other markets. We're starting to look for distributors and representatives. I think this week we'll sign up our first representatives in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and distributor. We're looking, in fact, today, we're looking for distributors here in Kansas City. We have a couple of interviews.
So what type of response are you seeing from your customers as far as like what specific problem this is solving for them? Like why do they think this is better than, what do they think as far as
Well,
the
it's the
benefits?
world's first portable billboard that actually can go outdoors and withstand 80-mile-an-hour winds, which is very significant. Banners fall apart at about 30 to 35-mile-an-hour winds. This banner will not. So that's significant. Part of the reason for that is because it gives. when the wind
But is that what your customers are telling you that they like about it, or?
Actually, also the convenience of it, the
Okay.
fact that this will go in the trunk of your car, the fact that you can change the faces of it out in a matter of minutes. It's only $69 to change a face out. It can be two-sided or one-sided. The other is that it'll go on a trailer hitch, it'll go indoors, and it'll also go outdoors. So it's the first sign also that's completely versatile, and you can use it in all capacities.
And then my last question is, what about like theft? I'm sure you guys have kind of thought through theft. I mean, it's obviously a more probably expensive and complicated product that I'm assuming people might want to.
We haven't had one stole yet. We have some in Oklahoma, Kansas, and Southwest Missouri. They have a permanency look to them when they're in the ground, so most people think, well, they're mounted in the ground permanently. But there's actually a locking place right here. You can put a padlock on it, $7 padlock. And in order to get it back out of the ground, you have to lower the arms down, reverse drive it. Well, you can't lower the arms down without the padlock there. So it does add an added security. It's a great question, though.
First of all, let me just say I really admire the solution you brought to this situation. It's always exciting to see somebody kind of conceive and then actually engineer a completely new product like this.
Thank you.
The material and everything's got to be pretty interesting. You mentioned distribution as your sort of sales channel. That was going to be my question. Do you have a marketing strategy put together? And in part of that, I'm wondering, have you considered going to multi-unit retails, businesses, and like Jiffy Lube or McDonald's or whatever, and actually selling at the corporate level?
We have. In fact, Quick Trip, we think, is about ready to sign with us. The word's got out, and so they're actually coming to us now. But in answer to your question, I think probably a little bit more specific is this product has to be showed to somebody by nature. It's, if you see it like this, you think, well, it's a sign. What you don't realize is that it collapses down, it goes in the trunk of your car, you can change the face of it out easily. So there's a lot of elements there that the average person would know just to see a video online until they actually see it physically go up. So we have that challenge, and it certainly is a challenge, is to educate people on a new product.
Okay. I did visit your site, and so you're obviously you're selling through the site. This might seem like a strange question, but I'm wondering if you've bought other spellings of GorillaSigns.com.
Love that question.
Because no one knows how to spell gorilla. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you how we stumbled onto that. Actually, my daughter she has a marketing degree. She was the marketing director for XM Radio Golf Channel for a number of years. And she researched what the product was. And she said, Dad, do you realize what this product is true guerrilla marketing? And I said, guerrilla marketing? She said, yeah, like guerrilla warfare. It's a derivative of guerrilla warfare. It's guerrilla marketing. And I said, well, how's it spelled? And she told me. I Googled it, and it was available, so I bought it. Anyway, that was the reason we took the name. But to a marketing person, which is obviously a broad market for this product, they instantly get it. Generally, they go, guerrilla. Spelled that way, I know what that means, guerrilla marketing. But to the consumer, yes, it is a little bit confusing. Of course, Google was too. The idea is that once you do know it, you'll never forget it because you associate it with gorilla, but a different spelling. But it is a little bit confusing. Someday, we hope to own all the gorilla names. So.
Okay, thanks.
Now we're going to open it up to the audience. So if you have a question, just raise your hand and we'll make our way around to you. Got one over here to your left.
Good morning. My only question was about those buttons, or you had clips of some sort when you were installing it. And I can certainly see some of my employees, I lost them, I don't know where they are. I saw you putting them in your pocket, maybe not as accessible for females, female realtors that are in dresses and out there trying to put the sign up. So tell me more about these clips and how can we not
Absolutely.
lose them?
Normally, I'd actually have everything closed up with all the pins in it. Since we're pressed for time, I went ahead and removed the cotter pins and put them in my pocket, but usually they'd just be in your hand. Does that kind of answer your question? Is that what you were? Sure, yeah, you can still lose them. Yep.
Back over here. Sorry, to your right.
A solution to that might be to put a little chain with a little hole through the back of the screw so they dangle. I don't know if that keeps that from being able to be folded up or something like that. so.
It would definitely help. There are multiple ways that we could do it. You know, it's just kind of more things to do while we're trying to get going. You know, once we're up and running, we can start doing things like
Sure.
that. It's a very good idea.
You picture somebody in a field of tall grass putting the sign in, and you're like, oh, shoot, where is it? So,
Or make them magnetic and you can just stick them to the pole there. Anyone else?
That was a big thing for us in the real estate world. When you get out to put up a sign and you need to have tools, you need to have hammers, screwdrivers, and all these different things. It's very frustrating when you don't have them and you have to drive all the way back to the office and get them. With this product, we have everything that you need. Including, we've had 130-pound persons.
So I hate signs like this, and I hate the way they clutter up the landscape. So congratulations, because the signs that you are trying to replace are so cheap that nobody feels like they need to come back and recover them. So you may be actually doing me, anyway, a real service. But I have a more serious question. I don't know how the signs that you were trying to replace, or at least I'm imagining the typical realtor sign, which is the type you push into the ground. It's pretty much at ground level. How do they work, even those signs, how do they work when you are in rocky ground or extremely gravelly surfaces like you might find out west? So this is obviously not a universal solution, I'm guessing, and I didn't know if you were trying to figure out a way to deal with those non-mid-Missouri, Midwest kind of problems.
This sign, we don't have any problem putting it in rock, if that's what you're getting at. It's actually, it's 35 pounds, but the stake is 12 pounds. Okay, so the majority of the weight is actually the hammer portion of it, and it'll go through rock fairly easily.
I've seen him put it through asphalt.
That's not even
I'm from the Table Rock Lake
even
area,
a concern.
so one of the prerequisites of the 20 list items that I asked for was that the sign would go in rock, and it does. In fact, that particular sign that on the floor over there has been in the ground probably 100 times, from Austin, Texas to you name it. Will go in very hard ground.
You wouldn't have any problem putting it in.
Great question.
Any ground.
And yes, they initially, the idea was to replace real estate signs, but we found out the market was broad. In fact, we found out there wasn't any business. In fact, we challenged any business to be able to use these signs. He challenged me the other day to a funeral home. I went in and I called him a funeral home, and he goes, yeah, I'll take 6 of them. And I had to take back just a minute. I thought, what are you going to do with 6 of our signs? And he said, I'm going to put them by the gravesite with the pictures of the loved ones on it. He said, it's the first time I've ever been able to do that. So it's just, it's incredible the different things that we can do now with this product, because it's the first one in the world, especially standing 8 foot tall. It's great for events.
I'm curious who does the printing for your signs and how designers have liked interacting with this size.
Well, I will say this. Russell looked all over the country for someone who could be a centralized printing system for our signs. We looked at the largest ones in the country. And believe it or not, we tried everything we could to keep it here in the state of Missouri, and we accomplished that. And Kansas City is actually where they're printed at. And they do a fantastic job. In fact, the engineering of this sign is very state-of-the-art as well. That's not just an average banner. That banner is made to withstand 80-mile-an-hour winds. So Russell also re-engineered the design of the banner itself, which is just someone in the banner industry, they'd be going, what do you mean?
And the reason why it does withstand such high winds is it actually gives. So when I designed this, I actually bolted it onto the back of a pickup truck, and I was actually in the back filming it, and my driver was screaming at me, 70 miles an hour, 75. We got up to 80 mile an hour, and there was no structural damage to it at all. In fact, I could sell it right afterwards. You know, there wasn't any damage at all. So.
Somebody asked about the size too. The 4x4 sign is kind of a universal size sign in the real estate industry, but construction, I mean, there's just really endless amount of opportunity. Our sales has been phenomenal. When we do approach somebody, they look at it and they see it and they say, yeah, give us a couple of dozen of them. So and we also have a 3x3 size that Russell just introduced, and it's the same exact sign, except it stands 6 foot tall as opposed to 8 foot tall, and it's a 3x3 face. So we call it the
3x3 frame.
We call it the little gorilla. So
I think we got one over here back from the panel.
Yeah, I thought the story about the funeral home was interesting. And, you know, one of the challenges with a product like this is there's so many potential markets, but it's always good to focus on like one market getting started. Have you thought about that? What would that market be for you?
actually, corporate America is probably our target market initially for various reasons. Obviously, the Quick Trips of the world, the large CBRE real estate companies, the large franchise which has multiple locations, obviously is very appealing because we can sell a lot of signs and get our price structure down. We foresee the price someday might even be half this cost. The price of our sign, the frame, which no one's asked, is $695 for one. But the reality is that once you own the frame, it actually saves you money in the long run. Anything comparable to this on the market. The average real estate sign that is erected by the average real estate company in the United States is about $600 every time they put up a sign. So really, when you look at our product, our very first client said he saved $38,000 in sales of signs first year. So they really serve, it's the first, one of my frustrations as a real estate broker for years was I was going through money. It was my biggest expenditure was signs. And when I called all the sign companies around the world, they said, there's no sign that we know of that's, that you can reuse and that it collapses and stores away easy. Storage is another issue with signage. Obviously, there's great big signs, where do you put them? So you save a lot of money in storage and a lot of other things.
All right, one last one over here to your left.
I want to follow up on Ben's question because that's exactly the same question I had. And I think the inventions, from what I can tell, the invention seems really cool. And that's what the presentation focused on. And I had the same question about market. And I just encourage you to listen. Your answer to Ben was very immediately corporate. And I connected to that. But if you look back at your presentation, you started off, and you went, even in the answer, you went back to real estate, which to me is not corporate. Maybe I'm just not your target market, and I don't understand that. But you talk about real estate. You also talk about inventing a new billboard, which I don't, so there's all kinds of different things that I'm hearing out of your messaging, and I'm really struggling to understand how to position, where you are. And I think it's fine. You have a great invention. Maybe it's great to sample in all these different places and see what hits. But I'm also looking for more, perhaps, focus on where you're going with this.
And that's a fair statement and a fair comment. Know that we're still in that learning stage. We're trying to figure out where the niche is, the obvious niches, and where they're not. So we've actually been pretty broad with taking a look at how the signs work and how they don't work. And we have found very good results that it works for pretty much every industry, including wholesale. Our target market initially will probably be the construction industry, real estate industry. They're obvious because there's no sign laws that generally pertain to those two industries. Political would be another direction that we'll go at some point. The United States government right now, we're actually submitting to the United States government for our signs. They're ideal for that. If we were to land a government contract, then yeah, that would be, that'd probably be our focus. But it's interesting because we're getting pulled in a lot of different directions. People saying, well, the car industry, our bumper hitch units, the car industry alone has had, Chrysler just endorsed our signs, first dealership. So it is a little confusing.
And our final go-to question, what can we as a community do to help you?
Well, obviously spread the word. That's always with a new product. Also, find us a new, no, I'm just kidding. But would also, we're looking for distributors in different markets. We think that it's important to go through an exclusive distributor so that that distributor has protection to build the brand name within that market. It's going to take effort to do that. And so we've opted to go that route. And so we're looking for, and it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody in the sign industry, somebody that just relates to the product. we have a Kubota dealership in Springfield, Missouri that is becoming our distributor. But obviously we need to make sales. So if you know anybody here in Kansas City, you know that's always a factor. Because we're self-funded. We've not had any outside source of money. Everything has been from the two of us, mostly labor.
Well, excellent. Thank you to all three of you. A round of applause for Grella Signs, please.
Let's get these signs.
All right, it's announcements times. If you haven't yet, please pick up an announcement sheet in the back. It has all the information you're going to want. We have one community announcement from Jacob with the Freelance Exchange.
Good morning, everyone. How are you? All righty. Last time I asked you this question, so I'm going to try to ask this again. How many of you are familiar with the Kansas City streetcar? Raise your hand. Oh, yes. Now, how many of you have ridden on the Kansas City streetcar? Good response there. All righty, so today is the last day because the Freelance Exchange of Kansas City is bringing in Willoughby Design. These are the people who created and branded the Kansas City streetcar. On Friday, they're going to be at the Block School at the University of Kansas, UMKC, and they are going to show us how they developed the brand for the streetcar. So for more information about this, head over to the Freelance Exchange Facebook page, the Freelance Exchange of Kansas City, or you can follow us on Twitter at FXofKC. And we'll send you guys, and we'll treat you guys an announcement about the link. Thank you guys.
Excellent. Mug Club is how we thank you for coming time after time again. So can you please raise your hand if you have been to 1 million cups 10 times or more? Excellent, excellent. Can you please put your hand down if you are not wearing a black shirt? Wait, you are wearing a black shirt. And you get a mug. Excellent. Can you please tell us, that was a confusing question, your name and why you come to 1 million cups?
I'm Sharif Higgins, and I come to 1 million cups because I'm always inspired by the different creations of different businesses and how they continue to innovate and change kind of how we think about doing business, and their bravery for standing up and sharing their ideas with us.
Thank you so much. Our next brave entrepreneur is Grant with Brick. Can we please give a warm welcome to Grant?
Thank you guys for having me. This place is like a temple to entrepreneurship. It's really cool. I drove up for the first time this morning and was blown away. But Brick, I started Brick. I ran a professional service firm for 8 years. We sold predictive analytics to Fortune 500 companies and political campaigns. And we had an issue of we were losing money because we couldn't manage our employee utilization. We didn't know who was working on which projects, when they would roll off a project, how to accurately bid, and we were running a predictive analytics company. If we didn't have a system to schedule out work and bid on projects, it probably didn't exist, so I decided to build it. How many of you in the room have worked in professional services? A lot. So professional services makes up about, I think it's like 76% of, or 63% of the US workforce, and Brick helps manage those people's time. On average, we help our users make an extra $850 per employee per month by weaving their employees and their projects together tighter. That's actually where the name Brick comes from, is short for fabric, of weaving all that together. Here's a brief history of what we've been I'll get to the product. So this is Brick. This is the first page that people see. It's a dashboard where we're showing you the numbers that you need to run your business at a glance, including your active projects, projects that are off track, your employee utilization rate, and your bench. Your bench is who's available to work on projects, who's overscheduled, how successful have your business development people been in selling work. Then we go over to our timesheet. That we allow multiple ways to enter time, including hours and minutes, decimals, and also up here with a stopwatch in the nav bar. In addition, allowing you to take notes. The reason that we built that was having multiple ways to keep track of time makes for better data in the system. And we use that to apply machine learning to how projects run. This was all supposed to be GIFs. But here's an example of a project plan that we build out where you have employees, roles, hours per week. We also show flags for things that are off schedule. So you can come in here and select a project to see if you're over or under plan, concurrent work. We built this to be very, very flexible. That's actually one of our biggest challenges with building Brick is running a creative agency. You're selling an inventory of hours and skills. Every hour, your inventory is being depleted. You're having to basically hit a moving target. But our clients are also accidental business people. They started their business because they wanted to be great creatives or great technicians, started freelancing, got more than they can handle, and hired a bunch of friends. So we're taking what I call accidental business people and putting them in a very stressful inventory system. And that gets to our biggest challenge, which is building out the product. We started in 2014 with a minimum viable product, went through the Straight Shot Accelerator, then, and we've now released timesheets. The coolest advancement that we've had is putting machine learning. When we started, we thought, let's just build a system to plan out work. Once we built that system, people were like, I don't know how to plan out work. I don't have any idea. And so we built timesheets and then machine learning where we're studying your timesheets to plan future plans more accurately. So you go in, you tell us what projects you'd like to plan, click a button, and we provide a recommendation by studying those past projects. Today, our biggest issue is boarding. We're working on making things really, really simple. And next, our focus is going to be on integrations into Google Calendar, QuickBooks, etc. Our successes so far have been really high engagement. Most of our users are logging in 2 to 6 times per day. We've only lost one customer, putting our churn rate less than 2%. Biggest win of the last 30 days is we've had our first touchless conversions, where people are hitting the site, understanding it, signing up, and then moving to a paid account. And actually, after this, I'm talking with our first enterprise level client about helping manage more than 100 employees. The feedback that we've gotten so far is that we're really easy to use, and that we're the first time tracking system specifically for creatives and creative agencies. You know, Toggle's great, but it's for tracking all time. Harvest is great, but its focus is invoicing. This is about managing your creative agency. Our biggest challenge is making this complex simple, but then also to investors and to employees and developers of explaining, yeah, it's simple today, but the vision is also complex. Originally, I built the proof of concept for this for Kiewit Construction, which is a Big Four construction company, on how to manage thousands and thousands of employees doing $10 billion worth of projects every year. So I have 28 seconds left. So let's get into questions.
Open up questions to the expert panel.
Okay, I've spent my entire career in a professional services firm, and you've definitely identified an area that's a challenge for every company that certainly is in creative spaces. You also are invoking the nightmare of every creative person or every creative department everywhere, which is the timesheet. So I actually have a whole raft of questions for you, but I'll try to narrow it down. First of all, how is the time entered?
Yeah, either directly on the system on a timesheet or using a stopwatch. One of the things that we're working on is actually automating your timesheet. So looking at computer server logs and movements on your phone to automatically track time. So then we would allow you to automatically track time and plan time. But I've got to find some more funding to do that.
Okay, so then you're asking the individual who you're trying to help to actually stop work and update the system.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So that gets to my biggest issue with all of these systems, which I'll come back to in a minute.
Yep.
One of the crippling things is that as much as these systems I've seen in the past are designed to help, they actually become a monster that you have to feed, and they end up detracting from your efficiency.
Yeah.
So how are you going to solve that problem?
Yeah, so timesheets are traditionally used to help you invoice clients. So employees don't want to do it because it's just helping their boss make money. Employees don't understand that paid invoices are how they get paid. But bigger than that is employees want to provide data back to managers on how long projects actually take. And it does take some time to fill out your timesheet, but not nearly the amount of time that it takes to misestimate a project and lose 20 grand on it, or go 3 weeks over on a 2-month project.
Right, that generally takes sort of an elevated view of the whole system. So if you can help individuals see that, that's a great thing.
And what we found on that note is people have thought that they were going to go back and analyze timesheets, and they never do. Like, we have a reports tab on the system. We've only ever built one report because we find putting analytics directly in the workflow is more helpful, because people will not take, they're selling time, so they will not take time to go read reports every month or every quarter, analyze timesheets. So we just give it to them right in the workflow.
Okay. I'm going to ask you another challenging question, and it doesn't mean that I don't like what you're doing, okay? Because I think this is definitely a hurdle that every company in the services field is trying to address. But you mentioned Toggle and I think one other firm, but in my survey, there are hundreds of software platforms that are trying to do what you're doing. So do you have, in 25 words or less, one thing you're trying to do that differentiates you from all the rest?
Using the timesheet to manage the creative agency, and applying my background in predictive analytics and data science. So beyond just a tool to ingest data, actually doing something automatically with that data.
So a quick suggestion as far as you mentioned potentially building an automated time tracking app. There's got to be 10 other companies working on that. So I would focus on what you just mentioned, which is your data analytics and your machine learning, and have other companies write awesome time tracking software that feeds data into your platform. Just a suggestion. I'm curious about, you mentioned that you've got your first touchless customer, self-service, and then you're talking to enterprise clients as well. Which would you prefer? What market do you want to head to? Because they're completely different markets.
Yeah. So I think, one, we've tried the partnering with time tracking. That was actually how we started, was a plugin for time tracking apps. But they struggled to understand the vision behind why you'd want to put that data into something else. So ideally, we've built to maximize our exit potential, our valuation. To optimize that, we need to go after those touchless conversions where we're getting 50-person agencies, 3,000 of them to sign up a month. The problem with that is it takes funding and traction. So we're slightly pivoting back to my enterprise experience in selling to larger companies, because that's what we have found that seed investors are saying they want.
If you have any question, let's get those hands up. I know there are questions out there. You guys are smart people. I'll start. How big is your team right now, and how will you need to begin to build your team in order to get these bigger clients?
Yeah, so we're 3 people today. It's myself doing marketing and sales and product development, then my partner Josh doing support and quality assurance, and then we have a full-time developer, which is great because we're releasing code several times a month. But we need help on sales, on marketing. Initially, one of the things that we thought was people would want outbound sales. They would want to be called and walked through this because they're busy people, and they'd want help setting up. What we found is that people want to set up Brick Friday night at midnight, and no matter how willing I am to do a demo at Friday night at midnight, they just want to do it on their own. So we've invested heavily in that touchless conversion, and people who are skilled at the marketing piece, and I'm working on video. It's a hard medium to get used to, but people really want like prolific video creation, and so I'm working on learning how to do that.
Does your technology help enable and facilitate a remote workforce?
It does. So it was initially our team was a partnership, a three-way partnership between Contemporary Analysis and then 2 remote dev teams that were, I think, 20 people and 50 people each, and they had built internal systems and saw that this was a bigger problem and wanted to put more resources into it, so we merged and collaborated.
Question up front.
So I have 2 questions, but question 1 as a part A and a part B. What's your revenue model, and have you reached break even?
Yeah, so our revenue model is $7 per user per month. We have not reached break even since we were pursuing that touchless conversion model to optimize our investors, because a year ago, or last year in December, it was an hour demo to get someone signed up, and then it was typically 2 to 3 hours of support to get them on the system. We couldn't scale that. No matter how much money we put into a customer acquisition, like, we were going to lose money at that model. So we refined that boarding process. So to come from spending 3 to 4 hours with each new customer to being able to sign up customers without spending money, we're now finally in a position where we're opening up sales.
So the second question is, you mentioned Peter Kiewit. Now, I can't remember if you said you worked for them or if you're actually developing this product partly for them as a customer. And if they are, they're not what you would call a traditional creative professional solutions. And I'm curious about the differences that you might be coping with. And if Kiewit is a customer, I would think that's a pretty distinctive feather in your cap.
So one of the curious things about Brick is both me and my partner are seasoned entrepreneurs, so savings we do not have in abundance. But in that light, the work that we did with Kiewit was for Contemporary Analysis, the company that I sold in June. So I don't get any of the IP or revenue from that client, but we had tried to productize what we had built for them, and it wasn't possible under the model that we had at Contemporary Analysis, so we spun that off to build this B2B SaaS business. Just trying to take a consulting model where you're focused on profit and loss, and then move to a product business where you're focused on growing the balance sheet. It's a hard shift to have a team make together, so we broke that off.
A question back here on your left.
Hi, Grant. I've also had a lot of time in this space, billing and professional services, and I'm getting very curious about who your customer is. I heard you give one answer in terms of, we're trying to do some enterprise stuff because that's where the seed investors want. If you break down that space even further, some of those companies are still what I would say kind of stuck into a time billing mindset, and some of them are based on moving more to a project-based billing mindset. Is there one or the other there that you are focused more on right now? Fixed bid. Fixed bid.
So I'm going to come in, and this applies. Really, our target market is advertising agencies with 10 to 30 people. That's our ideal client right now, who are pursuing a mix of fixed bid, retainer work, and hourly. But that fixed bid is so important because I have to hit my estimate right. So using that data from past timesheets is really valuable, and my employees want me to, since I have to come in on deadline, they don't want to work overtime or nights and weekends.
So I like that answer. That's fairly specific. Now, second question to drill into this, who is the customer? So that gives us an indication of the company that you're looking to sell to, but we all know that you have to find the decision maker inside that company. And as you look at that space, you have if that size company, they're going to have someone in charge of AR staffing the agency. They're going to have someone in charge of sales who are trying to figure out these estimates to feed them back into. You have someone who's probably doing some project management to allocate resources to these different projects once they've been won. But I don't know that any of those are the decision maker for your software. It's probably the person who's in charge of the profitability of the agency. What have you discovered in selling this, that finding out the actual person who's the customer, not just the company?
So there are the decision maker typically is the operations manager, but the influencers are the agency owner. That's our point of entry, and then we go to sales, and then also those individual PMs. But the person who makes the decision is that operations person. One, because they've been trying to build this type of system, be it an Excel spreadsheet or a whiteboard, and have had issues sharing that with other collaborators, those other partners, biz dev, practice lead, those types of people.
You mentioned that marketing is this area where you need some shoring up, but what do you know about marketing in this space, and what would you like to be doing more of? That's a good answer.
Yeah, I'm not funny online. So my biggest fear in life is being boring, but on the internet, I assume this persona of Professor Grant. The last thing that people really want is Professor Grant. I'm working on finding my lightheartedness, and part of that is trying to explore videos as a way to just get like filler content instead of my 2,500 word essay on calculating employee utilization rate. There's another 2,500 word essay on analyzing employee utilization rates. Yeah, so being funny. I need to learn how to be funny.
I've got another question. You mentioned, I think invoicing came up a while ago. A lot of the other project management tools that agencies use do go all the way through invoicing. Because it is time related?
Yeah.
Will you follow through into the kind of accounting side of things as well?
We stay the hell away from invoicing. Because once you start invoicing people, so you need to keep the invoicing system away from your agency management system, because if you're tracking time to manage your agency, and then you're invoicing in the same system, you're adjusting your hours. So it might take me 80 hours to do something new, but I don't want the client to know that. So I'm going to charge them, I'll probably make the same amount, but I'll tell them I'll do 40 hours on it. I still need to know internally that it took me 80, even though I've adjusted their bill down, or I've made a discount or an exception. So invoicing is a different reality than the hours and skill inventory that you have to manage your business.
I guess if you're project-based, then you may be able to sidestep that issue.
Yeah.
And then the other question has to do with media, which is the other thing the agencies want to merge with all this project management as well. So in the future, do you see embracing these other disciplines inside the agency?
Yeah, so media and expense tracking is something that we want to get into. The real strong suit, so I love just going, I'm a hacker, hustler kind of person, but my business partner is extremely disciplined and extremely principled, and that has led to us reaching this touchless conversion point. We are working on designs and that expense tracking through the design process. So once we have something that we're happy with, that is as flexible as our customers need it to be, we'll start releasing that.
Got another one over here.
Since this is an analytics platform, do you have visibility to how your customers are using and not using the application? And you mentioned you lost one customer. Do you have insight into why you lost that customer?
Yeah, so we have lots of data. That's probably the main value of Brick. Where we lost the customer was people. It's really tempting to over-engineer how you run your business, and people who either they love planning and they love engineering and they build these systems, they create a plan, and then it's not accurate. Well, with Brick, we want to know how inaccurate your plan was because we use that in the machine learning algorithm. But they wanted it to be crisp every week and update it and change it and move it so that if they said they were going to do 30 hours, by golly, they did 30 hours, which isn't that I want to learn about how long things actually take me.
We have a few more minutes. Here we go. And a question up front.
So in your presentation, you provided some objective comments about why you think your product seems to be successful with your customers. But piggybacking on that last question, have you actually talked to your customers about how valuable they find this? I think your last answer was maybe reflecting on the person who dropped your product.
Yep.
But what about those who are using it? What do they find in it? And do you also know if they've looked at some of the competition that's out there?
Yeah, so I spent 10 years as a door-to-door salesman selling high-end landscaping. So my clients find it annoying how much I call them and ask them, are you using it? Did you see this latest feature? Like, is that cool? Like, tell me about it. And so they have. We actually, that touchless conversion that we had, big win in my, like, feather in my cap. The first one that came through, they switched over from Toggle, which is a beautiful application. They have tons of integrations, but they don't, they provide you reporting, but it's not in that workflow. And they moved over to us because we put the analytics right in their workflow, and we have that, like, we click a button, plan a project using my data, not having me analyze what's the range of projects in the past have taken me to guesstimate and manually create a project plan.
One more question.
Actually, I'm sitting over here thinking like a lawyer and realizing you were working with data is, what kind of agreements do you have with your customers about the use of their data? Because I want to know my data is not going to be aggregated and sent out there.
Yeah. So nice thing is I came from enterprise Fortune 500 data science where it was all about privacy and security. Our customers, they don't care for that. They actually want us to aggregate it. We've had people asking, can you tell me how much I should pay people and charge people in my market? Can you share my data back to the other people so that they will share their data with me? Because it's interesting the amount of disparity between what employees are paid, what clients are charged for certain types of projects, because these are freelancers turned business people. They're a lot of times just guessing, and we're coming along and educating them. So data that does go into Brick is owned by Brick, but our clients have actually encouraged us down that path.
And last question from the crowd on your left.
What is your strategy to get in the door at these advertising agencies and try to convince them to use your model?
Yeah, so originally it started off with making phone calls, like just knocking on doors, sending emails. But what we found is that people are looking for these solutions. They're going out and they're searching and reviewing articles and videos, and that was surprising to me because I'm used to business owners being really, really busy and not having time for the internet, and it's just a fad. So we are investing in Facebook marketing, specifically dark posts, and then in search, and then a PR campaign where we're trying to get bloggers to cover Brick in their listicles about productivity tips or tools you need for your agency. Because I think that's probably the fastest way for us to grow, and that's where people want us to intersect with them.
Great. So the final question is, what can we as a community do for you?
Check out Brick, either to use in your agency, to write about, or to invest. One of the things I found really curious is we have a product that people can take a test drive of, but how rarely I get people to sign up for a 30-day trial to either invest or write about Brick or try it out. I think we need to get in the habit of downloading apps. My friends in San Francisco have tons and tons of apps on their phone that they're just trying out, and they're giving feedback to people. And we tend not to have that in the Midwest. And I think the more that we can get in and start using each other's applications, the faster our ecosystem and our community will grow.
All right, thank you very much. Let's hear it for Brick. So that's 1 million cups this week. Thank you very much for coming out. Next week's presenters are from the Millennial Trans Project. Their companies are Literator from Oakland and CA and Fresh Spire from Greenville, North Carolina. So we'll see you next week. Have a great Wednesday.